What is the Twilight Zone? What is up, alienARMy? I am Oculus, the alien next door, purveyor of esoteric lore. And on this channel, we discuss everything out of this world. Today's topic, we are going to be diving into a little bit of the Twilight Zone, what I mean by this metaphorically, and a few other interesting things. Here we go. So the Twilight Zone, this is really the basis of what I'm going to be talking about here. This is actually a TV show that was around, I believe it was aired originally in like the late 1950s and the early 1960s in the United States. So this show is pretty popular. They still have it. They have it a lot on the Sci-Fi Channel. There was actually a movie made about it, and I think they even came out with like a new version, like an updated version of the TV series, which I personally have never seen.
I did see the movie though. Pretty interesting. Maybe give it a gander if you want.
But this is not about the movie. This is about the original that inspired everything else, because you know me, I be channeling a lot, and what happened is that I was regarding the Twilight Zone, especially like the whole context of this series and the opening theme and some of the quotes that they say in regards to this show. So the host, Rod Serling, he says a lot of quotes, and I think they're pretty interesting, especially if you want to look at when the Twilight Zone first came out. So we are going to be going off into a few different topics here, but I do just want to say that when the Twilight Zone came out, this was sort of in the stage when television in the United States was still in its like infancy period, okay? Because television in the United States had been around since September 11th, 1928. And that's a pretty interesting date, don't you think? Anyway, so that was when the first television show aired, and it was in Schenectady, New York.
Don't know how you pronounce that, but yeah, Schenectady.
We have, that was being broadcast, and it was in, you know, because they didn't have the technology that they do today, or they did and they weren't utilizing it. But basically television back then was only broadcast like from one location, so it wasn't nationwide or globally as it is now. So this was going on in Schenectady, New York, and the first show was called The Queen's Messenger, which again, really interesting because, you know, I find layers of meanings and symbolism and everything. So
Do you see what I see?
that was the first television program that was broadcast. Program, television in and of itself is tele, we want to look at distant or at a distance. Then we have vision, which that's self-explanatory, something you're watching over a distance. And we also have the word program. So why is it called a television program? Something that from a distance is going to be programming you via the avenue of vision. Program. We are going to use the first definition of that if you immediately go in Google and type in program definition, which is a set of related measures or activities with a particular long-term aim. Similar, scheme, plan of action, initiative, project, strategy. So that's kind of the definition that I'm going to be using here, all right? So now we are going to look at the meanings of television program. We're going to keep on the back burner the Twilight Zone, and now we are going to fast forward from 1928, from the first television program broadcast, to the year 1947. Now 1947 was a very interesting year because a few major things happened in the United States. If you are an alien enthusiast,
Or even if you're just an alien yourself,
you will know that 1947, on July 8th in Roswell, New Mexico, there was a weather balloon crash. And I'm not going to get into the details of that. It's very popular. I'm sure you've heard of it. Basically, this was something that when it first came out, there was some sort of debris field and it had this weird silver metal. And the metal seemed like it was something not of this world because it was purported to be somewhat like aluminum aluminum foil, but you know when you crinkle up aluminum foil and then you try to stretch it out to get its former smoothness back, it might stretch out and become flat again, but you are going to have the crinkles still in that aluminum foil. So this metal that was found in the debris field in Roswell, New Mexico, around Roswell, New Mexico, was purported to be very similar to aluminum foil, but only if you crunched it back up and then you took it apart to expand it again into a flat surface, it would be completely smooth. So just a little fun fact there. Now, when this happened, at first they were saying the headlines that it was an unidentified craft. A UFO is an unidentified flying object, right? Or flying disc, however they worded it back then. And then it came out later that, oh, it was just a weather balloon. But there have been a lot of documentaries and features on popular shows about this, about the purported inhabitants that were also found to be at the crash site, and they were alleged to be riding in that flying disc, and then it crashed, and now these bodies were recovered at the scene as well. So that happened July 8th, 1947. Let's scoot along now to when the CIA was formed, also in the United States. September 18, 1947. So the CIA, I'm sure you already are aware of, stands for Central Intelligence Agency, and this is a company that works within the United States government. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but basically they are affiliated with the motherfucking United States government. Okay, so this was formed September 18th, 1947, a mere, a little over 2 months after the crash at Roswell, which, you know, if the media says something in regards to the crash on Roswell, who knows what's really true? Who knows if it's a half truth, if it's a 75% truth, if things were redacted from the original story and then another story was put back out there? Are we really gonna know the depth of what went on? I don't know. But it's come out that first it was announced that it was a flying saucer that crashed, then it was said to be a weather balloon. So either which way, the media wanted the United States citizens to know that that incident had occurred. So we're gonna fast forward about 2 months later to the Central Intelligence Agency was formed in September of that same year.
Thinking cap, yes.
And our key point of talking about the year 1947 in US history is also when television became mainstream in the United States of America. So this was a very interesting year. All of these things that occurred and things that were born and things that were put out for the masses to witness, right? So there are different rumors going around that I've heard exactly what the CIA was formed for and things like that. I mean, of course, there's also what you would call maybe like an out-of-the-box theory on what the CIA actually means and what it actually does, but either which way, they wanted the American public to know that 1947 was a pretty interesting year, and just coincidentally, there are no coincidences, television programming becomes mainstream in the US. So now let's fast forward a little more, because TVs, when they first came out, they were expensive, they were big, they're nothing like the curved flat panels that you see today. They are nothing like the little phone that you carry in your pocket and you could watch your fucking television programs on there. These were some big ass motherfuckers and they were quite expensive at the time. So now we're progressing along years later into the late 1950s, mid 1950s, somewhere around there, where now television is gaining momentum because more people are starting to purchase these devices to watch television,
be programmed,
tuned into a program. And we have this, in my view, from what I've recognized, this little outburst of sci-fi shows. So the first one, as I mentioned, obviously is the Twilight Zone, which we are going to explore a little bit into. And we also have another show, which is sort of like a hidden gem because it was not as popular as the Twilight Zone. At least, I mean, I don't think it is. Maybe it was at the time. I'm not sure. But it was of a similar genre, and it was called One Step Beyond. So if you've watched either of these two shows, and I fucking watched them, I love these shows. They're just
they're up my fucking alley.
They are basically talking about things that are of an otherworldly nature. So if you watch a lot of the shows, there's so much symbolism in them. What I noticed, and what another leading point of this video is that the Twilight Zone, one step beyond, there might be others that came out at that time, but that was like a really big time, like the 1950s, really after, you know, the Roswell incident, like most likely that was going on in the collective, and all of these sci-fi movies and comics and TV series started coming out. So we know that if they want citizens to know a story, they will put that story out there. They might put that story out there through a radio broadcast, they might put that story out there through a newspaper article, or they might put that story out there on a television program. So either which way, sci-fi, that was essentially pushed onto the masses for whatever reason at that time. So I look at I don't really think I ever not do this, but I look at all things from a different point of symbolism. What do I see in this? What is the hidden meaning beyond the surface of what they are suggesting to the viewer? So with the Twilight Zone and the show One Step Beyond, what I noticed is that they are really talking about mental telepathy. They're talking about aliens. They're talking about out-of-body experiences and mystical experiences. They're talking about so much of what actually is true, but it was marketed under sci-fi or whatever, right? Science fiction.
Is it really science fiction? I don't know about that.
So these shows, the Twilight Zone especially, in the theme, just, you know, you can watch the shows if you want to, or you don't have to. I'm gonna have some links below in regards to like the different quotes of the Twilight Zone and the different intros and things like that, what they were talking about. But basically, the Twilight Zone intro in and of itself, if you just watch that, you will see so much symbolism in there, because it changed over the years. Like every year that the show renewed, the intro changed, but it really comes down to the same thing. We have the black and white hypnotic type of energy with the stripes going on and spinning. It's sort of like that stereotypical thing where it's like, you are getting sleepy, your eyes are heavy. We have that going on with the black and white symbolism of the stripes. We also know that the black and white symbolism, be it stripes or be it the checkerboard pattern that's so popular, these come back to the duality, the polarities, Jachin and Boaz, which guard the Temple of Solomon. So now we have, you unlock this door with the key of imagination. So what exactly does that mean? The key, the key, the key. This can be also looked at as the key of Solomon, or it can sometimes, I do believe that the Ankh is sometimes referred to as the key. Either which way, we see a key, we see a door, and that door is sort of floating in the ethers, and then you unlock it with the key of imagination. So when you can imagine anything, you unlock the door, the unlimited potential of possibilities of anything that you wish to experience in your third dimensional reality. But they're saying really that you have to step away from the black and white, the polarity. You have to accept duality, rectify them within you, and then that your imagination, the key to the door, is unlocked, and therefore your imagine creates whatsoever you wish in your universe. Then we have the symbolism of these different type of waves, which is, I'm interpreting at, they can be looked at as the different brain waves, and depending upon what brain wave activity is going on within you, that dictates where you are in your consciousness in that moment. Because the theta state, in that level of consciousness, you are very, very susceptible to hypnosis, because it's sort of like you're in betwixt the realm of being awake and being asleep. So I'm seeing this as well with like the Twilight Zone, where if you are in the theta state, you are just really a sponge for everything that's going on within you, but you're also able to create whatever you want, because you're not fully in a state where your consciousness is on high alert, and you're not in that state of just pure sleepiness. You are in that Twilight Zone state, and that is the state where it is the most easily accessible to reach your imagination and to program it with whatsoever you like to experience, because that's the realm of the subconscious mind, the Twilight Zone. You program via the conscious mind through the subconscious mind. So when someone is in the theta state, they are very easily able to be hypnotized and or programmed. Also in the intro, Rod Serling is saying that this is not a dimension of sight or sound, it is a dimension of mind, which is basically saying that the Twilight Zone, that is the gateway, that is the pathway from the third dimensional plane to the fifth dimensional realm. That's sort of self-explanatory, but a lot of people just chalk it up to it being sci-fi or something that, you know, it's just a script rehearsed. But if you look at all of these things put together, just the intro in this show is telling you exactly what to do. We also have the symbolism of the eye, the one eye. We also have the symbolism, it looks like it's somewhat of like a doll or like a mannequin, which is representative of the third dimensional avatar, while we have the eye, which is representative of the universal God consciousness that resides within us all, that is directing the human vehicle mannequin. And then we also have the symbolism of E equals MC squared, which means utilizing the intellect correctly to project that which you desire onto the subconscious mind whilst you're in the theta state. So as I said, there are a lot of different intros for this one show, but those are just a few things that I just remember off the top of my head. I'm sure you might see other symbolism in there for yourself. Always utilize your intuition. If you're like, yeah, that's what that means,
then you go ahead and do you, boo. I'm just telling you
what I see with this. So this show and the whole explosion of the sci-fi genre back then when TV was picking up, it was really, in my viewpoint, to actually show motherfuckers what is really going on behind the scenes, how things work, how consciousness works. But it's being marketed in a way where it's being called fiction, which is,
I mean, you know,
if you're the programmer, you call whatever the fuck you want, because you're the programmer. So you're marketing as whatever the fuck that program was designed to do. So there are some rumors out there, I'm sure you've heard a few of them, where people are stipulating that the CIA invented the television program as a mind control experiment. But is this to enlighten motherfuckers, or is this to dumb motherfuckers down by calling something sci-fi when in reality, you and I, we
both know that it ain't no fucking sci-fi.
So how is it that this boom in sci-fi shows and movies and things like that, where they're talking about consciousness and different ways that the mind controls reality, how is all of this going to come out after the Roswell, after the CIA was formed, after television became mainstream? That year for this genre, ooh, that was the fucking pimp year for them, let me tell you, because a few years after that, we see the boom in all of this sci-fi stuff, this purported sci-fi stuff. Because if you've experienced something magical, you know that that shit is legit. And what are they really doing? Are they telling the audience the key to unlocking the door of the imagination resides within you, resides within the eye? Or is it showing lights of fancy to an unassuming audience, because they're saying all of this, but they're also saying at the same time, this is fiction? So which is it? I am just going to touch a little bit on this show One Step Beyond, because ever since I saw this episode, and it's called Emergency Only, this is something that I wanted to briefly get into, just because this is, from my perspective, the best way that I can describe how psychic ability works, at least for me, conveyed to me. So if you watch this episode, and I believe it's, I originally saw it on YouTube, I don't know if it's still there, but if you just search Emergency Only One Step Beyond, you will see this episode somewhere. Okay, this is amazing episode, I'm just saying. So this episode, in my view, is really the epitome of how psychic ability works, because it basically shows that there was this guy and he went to a cocktail party and a psychic was reading him his fortune, or she was channeling messages for him, and he was skeptical, but then that shit started happening. So that's all I'm gonna say in regards to that, because I don't want to give a spoiler. I would recommend checking that episode out if you're interested in it. But this, for me especially, this is how my psychic ability works, because it doesn't come through in a way where it's like on this day at this hour blah 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 will happen, right? At least not for me. Now, I might get a significant date in my mind, I might get a significant time in my mind, like let's say 3 p.m. or something like that, you know, something like that might happen. But psychic ability typically isn't just gonna give you all of the facts written out, because a paragraph written out conveying the future, that is something the realm of the conscious mind does. It's not the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind picks up on things. It doesn't know where, doesn't know how. It could say this date, it could say this time, it could even present a name, a color, a symbol, a musical instrument, whatever it is. It will present that, and it's up to the one receiving the information how they are going to interpret it and convey it to their audience. So psychic ability, if you want to know how it works, this is by far, I don't think I've ever even seen anything that comes close to exhibiting how psychic ability works. Because if you just watch this episode and you see the way that she's relaying information to this guy who's skeptical, everyone is just like, what? Like it seems like it makes no sense, because it's just scattered random things. But then when it starts aligning in that guy's experience, he's like, well, that's what they meant by that. So if you're receiving a download, or if you're reading for someone else and someone tries to question you, they're like, oh, but can you provide different details? It's like, no, psychic ability does not work in the realm of logic. So yes, you can get a certain number presented, you could get a certain instrument presented, you could get a certain city presented, whatever it is, but it's not going to tell you on this day, on this month, on this year, XYZ will do this, and then you will respond in that way. No, it's very scattered information, and I just wanted to throw that in there in case anyone is really curious about what is the most accurate representation of a legit psychic ability is. I'm not saying that anyone else is not legit, but typically if you're thinking that psychic ability is going to predict the future in a way where everything is just written out, that most likely is not going to happen. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but typically when someone is channeling, especially like if they're writing a book or something like that, they're going to receive whatever download. Let's say they receive a particular number. It's up to them to interpret that number, how that number is being expressed to them. And that is where the logic and reason come in, where they're writing out that book, right? So if someone, let's say, is channeling a book in regards to numerology and the number 8 appears, they are receiving the vibrational energy of the number 8 just out of nowhere. There's nothing else that the psychic ability is showing them. It's up to their inquiring mind, their conscious mind, to figure out what exactly that means. And that is how like a channeled text is written, because they are interpreting it for themselves through the lens of logic, and then they are conveying it in the way that that number energetically represented itself to them. So it's not going to be psychic ability where you're going to get a whole fucking sentence written out and blah blah blah. I mean, you might get a phrase, or you might get something, but typically genuine psychic ability is going to come through in bits and pieces, but you are already going to intuitively know what it means, and it's not going to be something that you're going to be able to put your entire finger on and say this is the paragraph of what exactly is going to happen. It's going to be like little random bits of info that are pertinent to know in the moment. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit, because I find these two shows, in my opinion, really fucking awesome. And if you are interested in seeing what I'm talking about with the symbolism, the Twilight Zone intro theme, you could just find that on YouTube. I mean, it's like what, like a minute long? I don't even know. And the quotes from Twilight Zone intros I'm gonna have listed below. And if you want to check out the One Step Beyond episode, if I find it, I'm going to have that linked below as well. So that's what I got for you today, because it's all really interesting how the boom in sci-fi started right after this boom in television programming and the whole Roswell thing. And you know, we have to take in the aspect too, like let's say that really did happen, and now they have this alien technology coming through to really speed up the process and make television mainstream, whereas in 1928 it could only be broadcast from a specific location to a specific location. Now it's like we fast forward a little bit and TV is all over, like nationwide. It's like, technology really advanced after that Roswell crash, didn't it now? That's what I got for you today. I am Oculus, the alien next door. We will chit chat again soon.